Hi everybody, and welcome to Filled My Head, the channel where we bring you the United States and the world in lists of 10. Today, we are taking a look at states that have a high percentage of prime working age adults, those in the 25 to 44 age group, the bread and butter employees that companies want, that have a bachelor's degree or higher. At Filled My Head, we are interested in this for a number of reasons, but here's a big one. We see it as a positive economic indicator for the state. Think about companies of late such as Amazon that have decided to expand core operations into other states. As you're looking for places to locate, you can seek out locations that offer economic incentives, but basing your decision on short-term economic incentives isn't always the best plan in our opinion. Starting up in a state that has an educated workforce gives you lots of options for the long term that no economic incentive can give. Economic incentives can save you real tax money short term, but these incentives don't last forever, whereas a smart workforce is what keeps your bottom line growing and positive over time. In other words, employees matter. The other key advantage, of course, is tied to this, and that is, it is cheaper to hire local than to relocate remote people. Period. Having local brains to pluck is a wonderful benefit. With this in mind, we're going to count down the top 10 states with these desirable workers. Before we get rolling, note that this age group as a whole has a rate of 37.1% that have a bachelor's degree or higher, and only 20 states match that or beat it. Illinois. My uncle's alma maters, the University of Chicago and DePaul University, and my dad's alma mater, Northwestern University, are fantastic institutions of higher education. Throw in University of Illinois, an excellent all-around school where my sister earned her bachelor's degree, and you have the basis for some smart people in the state that are available to work. And 42.4% of Illinoisans between the ages of 25 and 44 have achieved at least a bachelor's degree. But my home state has some serious issues, including a not-so-comedic reputation for corruption, that make it one of the very few places that are losing population, or, at best, maintaining. The taxes and cost of living also don't help. It's never as simple as one problem, obviously, but it goes to show the positive growth isn't all about education. Still, for employers that need some big brains, there aren't many locales that have more to offer than Illinois. 9 of them, to be exact. Minnesota. Brrr. The fourth coldest state in the continental U.S. has an impressive 43.5% of its 25 to 44-year-olds holding a bachelor's degree or higher. We'd say that perhaps there is nothing better to do than study when you're freezing your backside off, but maybe we'd have to think twice. We live in Texas, which is climatically, geographically, and educationally pretty far away from Minnesota, so we don't necessarily get it. All kidding aside, Minnesota does tick some very positive boxes, and a very educated workforce is one of them. If you're a business looking for a ready supply of educated labor, you can do a lot worse than the North Star State. Just be prepared to be cold. Virginia. Virginia, in many ways, is the model of what focusing on education can yield. While just a scant 0.01% away from Minnesota at 43.5% of 25 to 44-year-olds with a bachelor's degree or higher, the state also offers a very good public education system that's capable of providing quality workers in a variety of support positions, as well as providing an outstanding education to the children of everyone. Higher education in the state is nothing to sneeze at, of course, with UVA, Virginia Tech, James Madison, William and Mary, and Washington and Lee universities to choose from. Throw in some beautiful scenery, colorful history, a diverse population, and plenty to do in your leisure time, and Virginia makes it onto our personal list of states we would recommend living in. If you're a company looking for a talent pool, Virginia is also good to have on your list. Vermont. First things first. Vermont is small. Physically, it's smaller than the metro area I live in. From a population perspective, it's even smaller than the city I live in. Honestly, from a population perspective, only Wyoming has fewer people. So we aren't going to say that there is a giant labor pool to choose from here. Still, 43.8% of 25 to 44-year-old workers have a college degree, which is nothing to sneeze at. Like Illinois, there are some issues here. The cost of living is high, and the public commitments that have been made from a fiscal perspective are probably going to keep it that way for quite a while. But the state offers a good quality of life to go with its educated workforce. There isn't much crime, and if you like cold weather activities, there are a plethora to choose from. Just understand that you won't be able to easily fill in that 20,000-person workforce. Maryland. Maryland is, in some ways, a tale of two places. There are parts of Maryland that are among the worst crime areas in the United States. The state is expensive, and for people who are not in white-collar industries, that can be very problematic. The flip side is you have schools like the United States Naval Academy, the University of Maryland system, and Johns Hopkins University that produce highly educated adults capable of contributing at a very high level to employers who really need them. Overall, 44.2% of people aged 25 to 44 have a bachelor's degree or higher in Maryland. That's hard to ignore if an educated workforce is what you are after. Connecticut. Isn't Connecticut just a New York City suburb? Cool your jets, people, it's a joke. We know Yale is there and that UConn is a good school as well. For a small state, Connecticut packs a big education wallet. It also ain't cheap, and it's an example at times of the haves and have-nots. But smart people live here in droves. Yes, many, like friends I have in the state, have commuted to New York City for years, but there's opportunity for local employers as well, and there are in fact many major employers within Connecticut. With a healthy 44.6% of the population possessing a college education, it's worth a look for businesses that run on brain power. Colorado. There's a theme here when it comes to Colorado and our positive lists. They perform positively in nearly every category we care about, from quality of life to quality of public education, and from economic indicators to climate. It can be an expensive place to live, but it isn't so close to the top of the list that it makes us uneasy. With 45.1% of 25 to 44-year-olds holding a bachelor's degree or higher, Colorado has the ability to both attract as well as launch successful companies that require an educated workforce. Of course, no place is perfect. There are issues of homelessness and crime that are exacerbated by drug legalization, but that's not everywhere. The impressive development of the cities along the Front Range hasn't been reflected in other parts of the state we have visited, and that's also somewhat of a negative. But if you're looking for a place to be that offers an educated populace as well as some solid growth potential, then Colorado needs to be on your list. New York. We hear many people grumbling already about the absurd cost of living in New York City, and we can do nothing but nod our heads in agreement. But for many companies, the aspiration to have a Manhattan office, or even a Brooklyn office these days, is the same aspiration that many young and talented people have about where they want to live. New York, particularly the city, is like no place else in the United States. 45.6% of the 25 to 44-year-old workers in the state hold bachelor's degrees or better, and there's no shortage of good schools turning out people for promising companies to bring on board. NYU, Cornell, and Columbia come to mind immediately, of course, but the list is huge. Syracuse, University of Rochester, Rensselaer Polytechnic, Fordham, and some truly outstanding SUNY schools cover just about every subject you could want to study. The state is shrinking and has had some issues with leadership and the aforementioned cost of the cost of everything. But if you want a presence here, you can absolutely find some well-educated people to fill roles. You can even borrow some commuters from our next state. New Jersey. We confess when we think of New Jersey, we think about The Sopranos and what turnpike exit we're supposed to use. Humor aside, New Jersey has a lot going for it, including nearly half of its 25 to 44-year-old workers possessing a bachelor's degree or higher. 48.1% to be clear. Princeton and Rutgers immediately come to mind as top-quality higher education institutions. Places like the legendary Bell Labs in the state take in the best the state has to offer. Beyond the college degrees, of course, New Jersey also has a very good public education system. Like New York, it's expensive to live here. That's a bit of a theme on this list, by the way, sort of pay to play. But at number 2 on the list, this is a state that can offer incentives to employers and deliver the educated workforce that they need. Before we get to number 1, we will say this is a list where we feel we must explain why Washington, D.C. is not on it. And it isn't because it isn't a state. We fall into the who cares camp frequently when that objection is brought up, as functionally it meets many of the definitions. But not this time. While an astounding 70.4% of 25 to 44-year-olds hold a bachelor's degree or better here, we leave D.C. off this list because the federal government drives not only the outsized economics of D.C., but also the requirements for the educated workforce. While the 10 other states on this list are frequently producing their own homegrown talent, largely for private industry, that's more of a rarity in D.C. Yes, there are lifers in D.C., and they have kids. And there's no denying that Georgetown is a top-notch school if you are looking for a degree and can manage entry. but we think the government influence on the requirements of the area is so unlike anywhere else in the U.S., and there really isn't much here for private employers, that we relegated this one to the category of other. Though it is a really interesting other. Massachusetts. There is a joke that filled my head that every time there's a positive list we are planning on putting together, whether it's on economics or education, that we only predict spots 10 through 2 because Massachusetts is naturally going to come out on top. As we progress through our episodes, it will become clear why that doesn't amount to much of a joke. Yes, Massachusetts is that good. When we look at items that combine education and economy, we outright assume it is number one. This is a state with an almost absurdly good public education system, and it's arguably the best place in the United States, if not in the world, for the highest quality college education available. A whopping 52.9% of workers aged 25 to 44 have a bachelor's degree or higher. That's quite the labor force to choose from. Now, pardon us while we gush. Yes, it's expensive to live here, which means it can be expensive to operate a business here. But sometimes you get what you pay for. And this is one of those times, and today's data, plus more we're going to talk about in other episodes, reflects that fact. Now, if people in Massachusetts would just learn to drive so my wife doesn't request a military escort anytime we drive near Boston, I might actually consider relocating there myself. Our mission at Filled My Head is to help people understand the world better by making data simpler to comprehend. Thanks for showing up today and bringing your curiosity. No data sources are perfect, but all data sources used that we can link are linked in the notes below, so go have an explore. We are working on launching FilledMyHead.com in 2022. Check back with us to see when we announce the launch. Leave a comment or suggestion for more episodes, say hi, like and subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell icon so you know when more content is posted. There's a lot more content to come, so check back regularly.